Welcome everyone to another Thursday evening live stream. Thank you all for joining me this evening. Bitcoin has been selling off more than we are used to recently, and people are quick to jump to the conclusion that the bull market is canceled. So let's take a look at some different time frames, some different strategies, indicators, Fibonacci's, and so on, just to take a better look at things. With that, as always, we're actually going to start zoomed out on the weekly chart, as I always love to do. Take a look at some structure, and we'll work our way in from there, just so we can kind of get a overall view of the health of the market, see if there's any red flags or anything like that, and basically carry on from there. So basically what I'm looking at on the weekly, you guys know, I have been quite vocally bullish lately because we are just consolidating against all-time highs. Not too surprising to see some struggle there, because no matter what, even though I don't think the market's really in trouble right now at this point yet, it's just obviously a very strong level of resistance because it's where the market cycle topped out last cycle, right? So as it stands right now, as far as this rally goes, we still just keep setting higher highs, higher lows. And I know in my previous streams I was kind of outlining this green box here. And that's basically just my higher low structure on the weekly chart. We aren't even halfway back to that level yet, and people are already claiming that this bull market is over. We're going to see ridiculously low levels back to 10K, 15K, whatever, 20K, all those crazy targets that you happen to see across social media, obviously clickbait and stuff like that. But as far as the actual structure of this chart goes, we're even holding this level here, where we had these wicks to just a few weeks ago. We're only testing those levels and people are already flipping extremely bearish. This isn't even what I consider higher low structure. I'm still looking at this level here because at this point, this is our higher high here, the top of this red doji candle here, and this would be our higher high. So the lowest point between the two is obviously outlined in green here. So that's the structure. Until that breaks, I am still bullish as far as the long-term trend goes. I want to be very clear about that. Just because I think that this trend is bullish does not mean that we can't see some crazy volatility to the downside, right? $50,000 is a long ways away at this point. And what would that be? 15, 20%, whatever it ends up being from where we are right now. That would be another 20% drop to the downside. So a lot of people would be quick to shit their pants if we see that. But it would be healthy, and I would be looking for some sort of, if we could get some sort of a swing fail where we just grab some liquidity below that level, maybe even test this 48K level, right? This would have been what I was looking at for our first major correction. I was wrong about that. It was an important level, I'll give it that. I should just add the 618 here, because that is the level that I was claiming for over a year, that I think we were going to struggle at that level. And you can see that we did get that immediate reaction where we saw a little bit of panic there. And I shouldn't even say panic. That's when the ETF launched and, sell the news and all that sort of stuff. So we did see a bit of a rejection there, but it only lasted a few weeks until we actually ended up setting a higher high, right? We started closing candle bodies above that level. So the structure changed, and so did my opinion. As soon as that happened, I was very bullish because I've showed you guys, and I know this is going to be I'm going to sound like a broken record here because every stream I point this out, but every time we get weekly candle bodies closing above that 618 fib, we can see what happens. And this would be a perfect example. We're kind of testing up to the all-time highs back on this market cycle way back here. This is back in 2016. But basically we were testing all-time highs, and we pulled back to that 618 where we had got a 40% correction to the downside, but then we came back and tested it from the top and found support at that level. So that's something that I don't want to rule out happening for this market cycle as well. Obviously, it doesn't have to happen. Anything can happen. The market cycle does not have to do what it's done in the past. Nothing needs to repeat, and the markets don't give a shit what I think or about my feelings. So just looking at basic structure, that's still the level that I'm watching, is down towards, all the way down towards that $50,000 to $48,000 level. Do I think that we're going to get there? it's hard to say. Honestly, I'm kind of on the fence with the midterm right now. I'm just saying that, we don't need to test these levels, but if we do, there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally normal for a trend to test a higher low structure like that. If it were to get front run, I would consider here, I'm actually going to delete some stuff, make it a little cleaner. Just from that higher low structure, I mean, if we are to get a typical Stuber fib pullback, I mean, we could pull back a little bit further yet and kind of test these lower fibs. And, that would be an absolutely beautiful pullback. That would be down towards that 55, down towards 53K. But like I said, we could go a little bit further than that, grab some liquidity going all the way down towards 48, kind of testing that wick. So we're going to have to see what happens. But anything from here, staying above basically my red fib here, staying above 47K, looks good to me. Unless, closing candle bodies below this 50K, then we have to reconsider what the structure looks like then. But there's a lot of sleeps between now and then, or at least there should be. So basically right now, what I would love to see from a bullish perspective, let me just remap out this higher low structure. And basically just going to point out where our current high is on this trend. I'm just going to make it red here. So basically, if we end up just bouncing early, let's say we don't actually get down towards this level. Let's say we just end up, bulls step back into the market and we start closing candle bodies above this level. That's when I see that, hey, we now have a higher high. And at that point, we can kind of bump up our higher low to wherever our bottom is at that point. Basically, if we have our high and we end up getting a higher high, the lowest point between those two would be my higher low, my confirmed higher low, right? Just confirming that that's where the trend carried on from. So at that point, I would be looking for more fibs, right? And that's where I can pull a new Stuber fib basically and look for that sort of a thing. But you guys know that I'm not really trading the weekly chart anyways. I just like to zoom out and get an overall view of the market so that I'm not in extreme panic like you see in social media right now claiming the market cycle's over, right? I mean, this doesn't look any different than any previous consolidation. It's totally normal to see selling off for a couple of weeks here and there. So I'm personally not too worried about this trend yet. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, going to check out the 4 hour. You'll notice this looks a little bit different. And actually, I see Smallio in here. Will, this is actually a trick that I saw you point out, and it's very true. If people are having a hard time seeing important structure levels, sometimes it doesn't hurt to remove the wicks. How did I end up doing that? I think in settings. And yeah, just basically uncheck the wick box so that we're only seeing those candle body closes. Because anytime, even when I'm looking for those structure breaks, right? Every time I'm saying it, it's always like, hey, we're looking for a candle body close above this level or a candle body close below this level. So that's where this just gets rid of a little bit of the mess and we just see important structure. So at this point, something that's a little bit interesting. I mean, I don't know how much weight I want to give this. I mean, we did have candle bodies closing, obviously below some of this structure back here, but and actually in the immediate trend, something that is a little bit alarming is we obviously have this low and a lower low on this trend. So as soon as we get a daily candle body closing above this structure right here, that's where I'm going to be saying that, hey, it looks like we're reversing on the daily chart at that point. And it looks like maybe this was just a liquidity grab, just some sort of a fake out below structure. If we close above this, then I'd see no reason why we wouldn't test a little bit higher in this range. And at that point, I'd be looking more for, pulling fibs from the top of the range kind of a thing. But we've already tested some of these fibs a few times, or at least, if we had more something like this, you can see that, again, just looking for those Stuber fibs, right? You can see that there's so often a significant pullback at those levels. It doesn't matter. You guys know I'm usually pointing them out on the 1 minute or the 5 minute chart, but here we can see it even with candle bodies on the 4 hour, very clear. So, and something that goes with that is that where we topped out so far on the 4 hour chart, here, let me actually just remove this once again. where we topped out so far, obviously this level here, I'm just going to point out the resistance here. Something like so. You can see that on this uptrend, we just kept setting higher highs and higher lows, right? We have this high, higher high, higher low, 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 structure then broken, right? We end up losing that higher low. Just clean this up a little bit here. And just, yeah, basically look what happens when we end up losing, well, basically this whole area. I would actually say, you know, a more important level would be down here just because it's more of an important structure. This is very micro analyzing on something like this. But you can see that it's obviously, it was a very good reaction with the break of that. Not only that, but just look at this where we had that last higher low, and again, very micro analyzing here, but just look where we ended up getting topped out. Basically retesting that level. Just absolutely beautiful structure there, and it just goes to show how important those structure levels are and how they love to be retested, right? Here is where we end up losing, or sorry, right here we end up losing this level, and then it gets retested eventually before testing back down to the lower side of the range, right? So yeah, that often does line up with my Stuber fibs. So often when a trend reverses like that, the last higher low, that structure that gets broken is so often right around those fibs, and that's just a perfect example right there on the 4 hour. Daily, let's check out the daily swing. Yeah, I assume you're looking at something kind of this level here, Will. Looking at some beautiful support there so far. Yep, absolutely. So I don't think the market's in too bad of a place right now. Like I said, I'm not so sure we are going to see these $50,000 levels. But again, I just want to be very clear about this. As far as a macro time frame goes, if we test those levels, nothing to be all too concerned about, in my opinion. But yeah, as it looks right now, the daily, even the 4 hour, I really have a feeling that we're going to break above this level fairly soon. In which case it would just kind of confirm that bias that, hey, it looks like this immediate downtrend is breaking at that point, right? Because even just looking at this structure, after we lost this low, set a lower low, that's our lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. So again, just beautiful structure there. And I would love to see that reverse now and start swinging at some more longs there. I did actually miss a beautiful Stuber setup. I was just talking to you guys about this before I started here. I was actually talking about this range that I had mapped out yesterday in the Bitcoin chat. I don't know how many of you guys would have saw it. I had like something like 8 Stuber fibs mapped out on the 1 minute within this range. And just notice what happens here after basically, so same thing, right? Just looking for that structure break. That's confirming the swing low. And then we have that, you know, that's our final high, higher high, higher low. As soon as we break that, that's confirming our range high in that point. So that's basically why I mapped that out. And then notice what happens when so this is our range high. We set a higher high here. Well, what's our lowest point between the two? That would be right here. So that's actually our higher low structure, confirmed higher low. So at that point, that's where I can pull a fib, right? I'm going from our higher low to where after we swept the highs, set our higher high, and just look at this. I woke up pretty pissy today because the first thing I did was open my phone and looked at the chart, and I saw this pullback here after this range high break, and just pulled back absolutely perfectly right into my fib pocket. I mean, I teach this in every single stream. I'm showing it all the time, that how much I love that type of structure breaks followed by that pullback. And just look at that beautiful play there. Like I said, I did not catch that because I was sleeping at the time. I think it was 3 or 4 in the morning for me when that ended up happening. So I'm a little salty about that. I did end up swinging at this little bit of a short here. Already hit TP1. And basically looking at the same thing for this immediate trend, right? We have this high, higher high, higher high. Here's our higher low. We break that structure. I just basically follow the price with my fibs, right? So it basically pulled it from that confirmed high or the range high, pulled it to where we had bottomed out, and we did in fact end up coming back up to that 786. So it took a little bit of a short. My TP1, that's why I have these blue fibs here, is they're my take profits. The red one is my invalidation level, basically. So yeah, hit the TP1 so far. I'm not going to touch my stop loss yet. I'm hoping to hit TP2 yet. If that happens, I'll be updating my stop loss to break even, and I might even do it a little bit earlier than that if it looks like the bulls are showing signs of strength or whatever. But yeah, so far so good on that one. And that's the 5-minute chart, guys. So I mean, like I said, I love looking for these setups. It doesn't matter, it's the weekly chart, the daily chart, the 4-hour, the 1-hour, the 5-minute, the 1-minute. Market structure basically works the same on all time frames. Yes, the longer time frames, they have more money behind them, they have more momentum, they're more likely, or less likely rather, to have some fuckery. So they're a little more predictable. But I like the degen shorter time frames, get in, get out kind of a thing. So yeah, that's one of my favorite strategies there. And speaking of that, I actually posted in the Pro Signals yesterday that I was looking at a Solana play. I never did end up taking this, and the only way you would have caught it is if you did front run the 786, a couple dollars there basically. But you can see that that's basically what I was looking for, right? Same sort of thing. Here's a low, technically another lower low. That's our lower high, and another lower low, lower high. We end up getting that structure break. We end up pulling back right down towards that 786 fib. So yeah, like I said, I never did take this one either. I had pointed it out as a potential scalp, or not even a scalp, a potential spot buy. I guess I shouldn't say that I'm not in it. I did spot buy some Solana. I just never did take any leverage positions. So I was spot buying a few things on the dip. Solana, a little bit of Peng, same thing. We have that structure break. Look where we end up pulling back to. Even if this doesn't end up holding, whatever, I was comfortable buying at these levels because I'd rather be buying at that 786 pullback rather than at FOMOing into a rally kind of a thing. So again, even on these meme coins and shit, you're still seeing that respect this structure so well that when a market pulls back, it so often pulls into that pocket. So that's why I love pointing it out so much. And this is the 4-hour on Peng. LPT we were just talking about before I started here with a couple people. This looks like a nice structure break. I mean, not too surprised to see it climb a little bit higher like that. This is where, again, I'd be saying, low, lower, low, lower, high. Let's just take a look at that structure. We obviously get that bullish structure break. We pull back. I don't see, I'm eyeballing and I don't see a Stuber fib there. Maybe almost a 618. But either way, the bullish structure is there. That's where, you're not necessarily getting that full pullback. You could be looking for other things like, this is a 4-hour chart. So that's where I could start zooming into the shorter time frames, right? And looking for those reversals a little bit earlier. But yeah, I'm not even sure what this coin is, what it does, anything like that. I'm not really a fundamental guy anyways. I'm more of I just like to draw colorful shapes and trade them. But mostly trading Bitcoin. When it comes to leverage, I'm kind of nervous trading altcoins. I've done it a few times and had negative experience. I've had good experiences with leverage trading altcoins, but I've had a few of those situations where, throwing a little bit of leverage on a position and there's low trading volume, for example, and this did happen to me, and I've said this story a few times where I can't remember what the coin was, but it was on MEXC. I was in I think it was a 20 or 25x long position. I was very quickly sitting in about a 30% profit. I bumped my stop loss up to a 5% profit, and that position got 100% liquidated. Just goes to show that a stop loss isn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily protect you. I want to be clear about this. Stop losses are a very good habit. I never trade without a stop loss. But always be aware when you're entering positions, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, as long as you're in isolated cross, a lot can go wrong, especially if you don't understand it, because it can pull from different positions and shit to basically not liquidate yourself, liquidate your whole account instead of one position. But when it comes to isolated, that's where basically always consider that worst case scenario, however much margin you actually put on the trade is technically what you can lose. It doesn't matter if you have a stop loss or not. Typically speaking, that's where I said I really like trading Bitcoin more so with leverage than altcoins, because generally speaking, there's good volume. You're not getting near as many of those screw you wicks and that sort of thing. Whereas with altcoins with low volume and that sort of thing, I mean, it can happen all the time. So just some words of warning there, I suppose, just learning from something that has happened to me before in the past. So I've had so many of those situations. Yeah. Stop losses that were set in a big profit still getting closed at a big loss because the market maker pulled orders. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? That's just why I think those low volume pairs are so dangerous. It's nice because they're usually quite volatile, but that doesn't necessarily mean, it's going to work out, because even if you try and take profits, for all you know that, you try to close your position and then there's a ton of slippage with that too, as well as entering the position. Let's say you're trading something that has low volume, and you put in market orders rather than a limit order. I mean, your entry can change significantly compared to what you are expecting to get in at. So just another thing to be a little bit cautious of. I personally never use market orders. I always use a limit order. Even if I want to be in right now and I'm treating it like a market order, I would just, let's say I want to be in a long position and I want to go in right now. I don't have time to wait for a pullback for whatever reason, or it already pulled back and now I'm in a panic or whatever to get in at my ideal entry. Let's say it's a long, for example. I would just enter a limit long position and I'd set the price, like, let's say $100 higher on Bitcoin, for example, just because then I know that, hey, I'm getting in as if it's a market order. But if there's, for some reason, some sort of weird slippage going on because of low volume, market makers pulling their orders, whatever shenanigans is going on, at least I know I'm not going to enter a ridiculous position, because I've had that happen in the past too. Like I said, doesn't happen with Bitcoin very much anymore. Last cycle, what exchange was it? BingX. I remember that happened to me a lot, where I would try and enter positions, whether they were momentum orders or market orders, and I would get hit with crazy leverage and be like, oh, well, I just missed out on 20% because of where I actually got into the position. And then that throws everything off, right? Because then all of a sudden your stop loss is way too far away. Yeah, exchange overloaded. Please try again. Man, that makes me get a twitch in my neck. Fuck, that message is right. The amount of times the servers were overloaded and you couldn't put in an order for a few minutes. Yeah, I'm glad that we have better exchanges and just better liquidity and everything around Bitcoin now, because that was so frustrating last cycle, or the one before, whenever that was, last cycle, I think. They were allowing whales to buy via dark pools. Oh, yeah, I didn't actually know that. I just assumed, hey, it's one of the earlier apps that I was allowed to trade leverage on, so whatever, I just took it for what it was. Take what you can get, kind of a thing. I did want to, since Solana, like I said, it found support very close to the 786, has this structure break here. Solana doesn't look too bad to me. And for that reason, I also want to take a look at some memers. And I'll just take a look at a few different meme coins that have kind of caught my attention. You guys feel free to request things, whatever. I'm going to start with 3 of the ones that I've been following lately. I've pointed this one out many times, is Burek Obima. I have actually played this quite often. It's broken out of nice wedges. I wouldn't mind removing drawings just to clean things up a little bit. This one often likes to see these big spikes, and it's been around for a decent amount of time and it's still surviving. And, I've just had good luck with this one, just kind of buying when we get back down to these support levels at the bottom. And just basically scaling out as it climbs and then rebuying as we drop back down to these levels. So I do hold some of this. Let's actually, I am curious. I want to, for one, I'm going to start with horizontal lines. You can see, so this is where we had bottomed. And then you can see after we get this little pump, we end up kind of finding support right on top of this old consolidation level. What happens next after we break out? You can see that that's kind of where we're finding support again, is on top of this consolidation area. So I'm hoping to see a bit of a pump out of this guy. Some levels to watch for. Not everybody likes trend lines. I personally do like pennants and stuff like that, but I like to see them respected. I don't set blind orders based on them. I want to see how they're actually respected before taking orders. Unless it's a take profit order. For example, I would absolutely be looking at scaling out of my position if we end up getting back up towards this level. But if we get some sort of a third touch point and a much bigger wedge like this and then respect it like that, especially, coming towards election time, just with the presidents, ex-presidents, whatever, the stupid pleb face. I love these ones. So, maybe it will see some sort of a crazy breakout later in the year. But yeah, even some of these moves, like what is this pump here, was like a 700% move to the upside. So even right now, if we do get another touch point of this, you're looking at like a 200% profit. Again, not saying it has to happen, just kind of something that I'm watching for. And speaking of that, let's see, even with these shit coins, with these memers, same thing is I still love looking for those fibs, and that's another level another reason why I was buying this. It's because even just look at this, talking about those consolidation levels and stuff like that. You can see that basically get that pullback right into that Stuber fib pocket, even a little bit lower, but whatever, you get my point. Never got invalidated, not even close. And then same thing after we end up setting our bottom here, get our breakout here. Where are we finding support? Well, we're trying to reclaim that 886 right now, basically. So even these things love to pull back to those levels, right? Just to show how powerful they are on any time frame, any asset. Well, I guess more so in crypto is what I'm familiar with, but anything I check out, quite often you see those pullbacks to those levels, even if a trend's going to continue on in a direction. So that's why I love those fibs so much. And just invalidation levels are that much closer when you're buying that far, or selling if you're shorting. Just waiting for those pullbacks, just because your invalidation level is so much closer, so you can use higher leverage and that sort of thing, right? But anyways, that's about enough for Obima. DFTU, I know this is one that a lot of people in the group have been talking about. Actually, I want to look at the 1 hour. And I've been in since basically the second hour this thing was launched or something like that. Basically just looking at market structure on this guy as well. When we were trending to the upside, basically this would have been our last higher high. So if we are basically looking at structure, that would have been our higher low. You can see that ended up getting broken. And then we end up, getting our little bit of a bounce, but then trending to the downside a little bit further. I'm actually curious if we go from this wick here. Yeah, look at that, 786. So we get that structure break, pull back to the 786, and just a beautiful respect of that level. So just, again, showing you how even these shitties respect that. After this, what can we expect from here? Well, we have this lower low. This is actually another lower low, and this is now another lower low. So here's our lower high. We end up breaking that structure, and you can see that basically trending to the upside since that. So basically, as long as we're kind of holding above this little consolidation that we have here, I think it's in a fairly good place on the 1 hour here. Last memer that I want to talk about is CHONK. This is very small market caps, so high risk, obviously. I kind of like the idea of them making a hybrid between token NFT kind of a thing. Obviously had this initial pump to the upside and then pulling back to those levels and just kind of consolidating. Only has like a $500,000 market cap. But they're actually building stuff, and I've been watching their followers, and their followers are growing quite fast for how small it is. Yesterday, I think it was like a 1,500 followers or something like that. And I know that they are actually launching a new NFT line on Saturday. I'm actually whitelisted to be able to mint a few of those. So that's something that I'm planning to do. Not financial advice. Do your own research, obviously. Anything when you're looking at meme coins, small market caps and shit like that. Obviously looking for high reward, very high risk type of setups. But yeah, this is one that I know I've seen a couple people post about it in the group as well. So I wanted to touch on that quickly. But yeah, that's something I'm planning to do on 420 after, taking part in other activities. So that'll be my plans for that day. I want to take a look at the MDX ALGO dashboard here. Something to consider is retail is very long right now. 70% here. I guess this is on the 24-hour time frame here. Just something to consider there. I mean, when you're looking at top traders, it's a lot more balanced at least. So there is still that going for the price. Just eyeballing this right here. I mean, beautiful to see that we had a monthly. Actually, let's go to a more reasonable chart here. I want to delete these again. I want to actually take a look at the monthly chart because I know I had actually talked about this recently. Was that, no matter how you look at it, there's people calling that the bull market is over and stuff like that. This is crazy structure, in my opinion. It's the fact that we got a monthly candle close above our previous all-time high. And I even said, I think it was my last stream or the one before, I said, just watch. After we get a monthly close above this level, we're going to pull back just to retest this candle. And everyone's going to be shitting their pants. And that's exactly what we've seen this week. I mean, we're just pulling back into a candle. If this was a 5-minute chart, if this was a 1-minute chart, hell, a 1 hour, a 4-hour chart, even a daily chart, nobody would second guess it. Everyone would think, yeah, it's totally normal to test back lower into your previous candle and think nothing of it. But when you really zoom out and see it on a larger time frame, you can see how impatient most traders are and how quick people are to flip their bias. So something to consider there. Even if we see some kind of a pullback, because, hey, you know what? Quite often after you sweep a structure level like that, you do often see a bit of a pullback. But, we have that nice structure on the weekly and that sort of thing. Down at that $50,000 level, 48,000, a couple important levels there. So I don't think that we necessarily get, this type of a correction. Obviously anything can happen, but I'm really not expecting that. I just think that this monthly candle close was so incredibly bullish. We still have 12 days to see what happens with this next monthly candle. I wouldn't be all too surprised now. Actually, something that would be beautiful, something to watch for you guys, since we now have a high and we have a higher high. If this monthly candle does close red and then the following month we end up setting a higher high, we now have a very impressive higher low. This isn't going to be a thing for another month and a half, if it is even to play out, just something to look for. If we end up closing this and then getting a candle close above that level, that's where structure changed again, and in a very big way. And, that's where we can, if this is where we bottomed, for example, we'd have a new confirmed higher low at kind of, around that 60,000 rather than down at 50,000. So all things to consider there, guys. A couple memer requests. Let's do it. What do we got here? Gatsby. I'm just assuming it's this one. Which one there, Nisonic? Is it the Solana one, the base, or Uniswap? I'm assuming it's the Solana. Okay, I figured so. Market cap 640K, liquidity 150K, trading volume next to nothing, but that's to be expected for most memers. I don't want to zoom way out to a 4 hour because, you know, if we're going to be degenerates, let's be fucking degenerates here. What kind of structure do we have here? You know, okay, this is actually beautiful. Perfect example. Let me just, here we had low, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. We did end up breaking this structure. This is on a 1 hour chart. And look what happens. I can eyeball it right now, and you guys know exactly what I'm going for here. But we set that higher high, and boom, look where we end up finding support. 786 fib, absolutely perfectly. It's amazing, you guys. I know I say this to you guys quite often, but as I look at more and more charts, and after I started seeing these, and the more I see them, obviously, you know, I can explain this a million times, but until you actually start to see it ahead of time on your own, it does take some time until you just get an eyeball for it, right? And but once you start to see it, like, I just feel totally autistic now. I see 786, 886 everywhere. I've said this to a few people before. I see it in my regular everyday life. If I see trees next to each other and one shorter than the other, if I see buildings, you know, I can just pick it out like, hey, there's a 786 right there or whatever. I just fucking see it absolutely everywhere. And a perfect example is, I know in the Bitcoin chat, I think it was yesterday, like I was talking about that in this range back here, I had pointed out on the 1 minute chart so many different Stuber fibs, and I know the picture looked quite messy because they were all over the place, but it was crazy how many of them played out. Even though we were trading in this bigger range, there's obviously a ton of little ranges inside a bigger range, right? So yeah, absolutely just seeing them fucking everywhere. Yeah. Mini-me 786 retracement. That might be more like a 382. Or no, sorry. I see exactly what you're seeing. Oh yeah, that's a 786 for sure. At least. Oh, that's funny. Absolutely. So yeah, Gatsby looking good on the 1 hour in my opinion. I mean, obviously it does not take much money to move these memers. That's something I want to be clear about, is technical analysis can be thrown out the window fairly easy. But you still do see it so often. I mean, this is a perfect example of how many that I've shown you today on many different pairs, different time frames and everything. So yes, it's easier to negate that structure and these ranges and that sort of thing, but just goes to show how often you do see them. Holvin, let's check this here. Once again, I'm just assuming Solana. Ooh, down 70%. 4.73 million market cap, liquidity 185. If this is the right chart, I honestly don't have a lot of good things to say about it, if I'm being completely honest. Obviously that can change. We can break some structure and change that at any time. But as it stands right now, you know, we clearly have this low and we're setting a lower low, lower high. So, you know, I'd want to see, just to map out some resistance here, just basically looking at this whole level. I would really like to see the bulls be able to, here, let me get my brush out. If the bulls are able to reclaim this level, that's where I would love to see a 786 retrace and, you know, get in something like that. Doesn't have to happen. Something else to watch for, guys, is you have to understand that these 786s, you know, when I'm posting trade setups and that sort of thing, doesn't mean that the market has to get there. And also those fib levels will change if the price starts, you know, just going a little bit further, right? So like if we end up setting a higher high here and reversing versus if we set a higher high and we go all the way up here, that 786, 886 is obviously going to be a different level. And on top of that, if let's say we do set that higher high and then we pull back, but we don't even get close to that 786, but we set another higher high. At that point, our invalidation, we just have another higher low. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that pullback towards the lower 786, 886 until we actually lose a higher low on the trend. So even getting something like this, at least you have a tighter invalidation level. So at that point, you could start looking for entries on some sort of a pullback towards the higher low, and having invalidation level and taking another swing, let's say, if you do pull back to those further fib levels. But just something to be aware of, because I think when it comes to trading, you guys, it is far more important, in my opinion, to be able to react rather than predict. We can make predictions all day, every day, but unless you are able to react to those levels and see that, hey, A happens, so I'm going to do this, or B happens, so I'm going to do this, right? So we kind of have to have an idea and just not have too strong of a bias, right? So many people think that, like, hey, I think we're dropping to 50K. Nothing's going to change my mind until we test those levels. That's not necessarily how trading works. We have to be ready to adapt to the market. And that's where understanding those structure breaks, you lose a higher low on a trend. Hey, the structure is broken. Or let's say you're in a downtrend and, hey, the lower high is broken. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to reverse. I mean, like, let's say we do end up breaking this level. It's absolutely possible we just end up nuking to the downside. What you would ideally want to see is that break followed by another higher high. That's where it starts to look more like a trend, because not only have you broken the lower high structure, but you actually set a higher high as well. But even just looking for that structure break, that's kind of more so what I do look for when looking for those fib pullbacks. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. I'll check that one out as well. Satoshi. Oh, 13 hours ago. What's this guy up to? Oh boy. That's pretty hard to do some analysis on. Let's zoom in. Yeah, as it stands right now, I mean, when they're this new, it's hard to say if they're just going to end up rugging as soon as it loses momentum or not. But as far as the structure goes, I'd agree the trend is still holding. I mean, you can see that we have this higher high. Here's our higher low down here. So if we were to get a healthy pullback, I mean, wouldn't be all too crazy to see us test down towards that 786, 886 fib pocket. Does it survive if it drops down to those levels? With these newer coins, it's so hard to say, but that is where the structure level would be, where I'd be looking for that pullback personally. Yeah, have to see what happens there. Like I said, not a heck of a lot of analysis we can do with this just because it is so new. But yeah, that's the 5-minute chart anyways. Anyways, guys, I don't have a heck of a lot else that I was planning to go over. Bit of a smaller turnout today. To be honest, I kind of forgot to post this as a reminder earlier in the day. I kind of forgot until about an hour or two ago. But either way, I hope that you guys who are here with me did find this useful. I will stick around for a couple minutes in case anyone has any last minute questions or anything like that. I just want to kind of wrap up the stream and get it uploading and that sort of thing. So anyways, legends, that's all for today. So like I said, hopefully you found this stream useful. For those of you who are watching this on my YouTube channel a little bit later, if you are interested in some of my favorite indicators here, got all sorts of goodies here. If you're interested in the indicators, and that also includes access to the VIP Discord with live streams such as these put on by, oh, dog's going nuts here, put on by not only myself, but also a handful of other very knowledgeable traders in the group as well. If you need access to a no KYC exchange to get your DGen on and that sort of thing, I do have a couple links in the description down below for discounts and so on. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.